All right, we have a 1 minute warning. 1 minute warning. Well, 1 minute till we go live. You know what I mean. We'll bring the studio on in about 1 minute, but we'll let you guys fill in the chat room and get ready. It's going to be a great program tonight. Got a lot of good stuff for you. What do you mean not looking good, Disgusto? Come on. We're going to go live in just a minute. Just let me get through the TFR commercials and then it'll be on. It'll be good. Randy, good to see you. I will give it about another minute. A little less news, more peace and tranquility, joy and happiness. Raz, good to see you. Oh, yes, well, we're going to talk a little bit about that disgusto on DLive. Don't worry about it. Our fearless leader is just fine. Workout. All right, let's go ahead and bring the studio on here. I will give 15 more seconds. Okay, here we go.
Here's the House will pass a one-day stopgap measure to keep the government funded until there can be a vote. Several European countries have banned flights from the UK, and others are considering doing so following the discovery of a new strain of COVID-19.
The Netherlands, Belgium, and Austria, among others, have halted arrivals as British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said there is no evidence yet suggesting this new strain is more lethal. While the strain was discovered back in September, it's just now out of control.
Fox's Trey Yingst. Campaigns continue in Georgia for runoff elections next month that will determine control of the U.S. Senate. President Trump is traveling there in a couple weeks
to rally up some support for the Republican senators despite his ongoing feud with election officials in this state. The president tweeting, as badly as we were treated in Georgia by the Republican governor and Republican secretary of state, we must have a massive victory for two great people, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, on January 5th. For them on Monday.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future, and here the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Let me give you my Religion of Peace report tonight. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 31 attacks In these 31 attacks, they killed 127 innocent people. They injured 121 innocent people, conducted one suicide blast, and spread their mayhem across 14 countries. All this from the religion of peace. Yes, pay no attention to this. This is a shaving accident in the shower. It happens every 3 or 4 years. No big deal. It is not what you at first think. It is not that. It is just a shaving accident. Yes, I shave in the shower. Why not? It's very efficient. Why shave and then get in the shower? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Just do it all at one time. Get it over with. Come on. It's all going to the same drain anyway. What? Oh, let's check it out. Oh, Raz is there. Ditto Bots is there. Oh, nice. On Twitch. Very good. We like to see the Twitch people there. J. Scott Weller. Good to see you, sir. Eric. Carrie Cassidy's leaving YouTube. Hagman's gone. Yeah, well, Hagman. What can you say about Hagman? Sorry to say about Carrie Cassidy. She built quite an empire. Quite an empire. Good run. Good run, Carrie. Brandy Lou. Sun Rabbit, do you remember what they used to call the Stalin? They used to call Stalin Uncle Joe. Yes, Stalin means man of steel in Russian. Just so you know this thing. We have men of steel too. Greenheart, wow, good to see you out there. Sergeant Friday, excellent. No, it's not a herpy. It's a shaving accident. You better take my 1080p and put it right there, and you'll be able to see 2 little blade marks right there. I felt it when it got me. Ha ha ha. Robbie Pierce, Guy Francis, Scott, good to see you out there. You're an engineer. Build a better razor. Ha ha. No thanks. No money in that. Some guy named Harry beat me to it anyway. Mark Hovsepian, good to see you out there. All right, let's get started because we have a ton of stuff to get through. First, let me get this out of the way because we want to talk about the necessities. SolarWinds, the battle bot. Yep, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, has revealed that the recent hack of the Austin-based IT company SolarWinds was much worse than initially reported, and it poses, and I quote, a grave risk to the federal government. I wonder why. The National Nuclear Security Administration, which maintains America's nuclear stockpile, has been targeted by the hack. Nothing to see here. CNBC reported that the scale of the recent cyber attack against the Austin-based IT firm SolarWinds is beginning to be understood and could be much worse than previously thought. The summary added that state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, as well as critical infrastructure entities and other private sector organizations, are also at risk. What they're trying to do here, I think, is stitch some things together. It is further being reported that the Energy Department and its National Nuclear Security Administration, which maintains the stockpile, was targeted, and an investigation has found that the hack didn't affect mission-essential national security functions, which means it didn't get into the weapons and only got into the stockpile. Now, it isn't, I don't think, as frightening as what you might think, because we have slowly and steadily been converting our nuclear stockpile into nuclear fuel to run the nuclear power plants. So it all goes in through Irwin, Tennessee, and it is, it's dewadded, okay? It's taken from nuclear weapons-grade plutonium down to a fuel style and radioactivity that can be used in nuclear power plants. So that is the stockpile, and that's most of it. The shell game of what is a weapon and what is fuel, that is what is mission critical. So it's now being reported that Microsoft was hacked in connection with the SolarWinds attack. Now we're getting into some really serious stuff. We've been actively looking for indicators of this actor and can confirm that we detected malicious SolarWinds binaries in our environment, which we isolated and removed. We've not found evidence of access to production services or customer data. Our investigation, which is ongoing, has found absolutely no indications that our systems were used to attack others, like you and me, that use Microsoft. That would really be bad if they got to me. More than 40 client organizations were compromised in the attack. Let's see here. This is the serious part. When you start getting the elected officials who sit on these committees who are willing to come out and say something. Of course, 80% of the customers are located in the U.S., which sounds like identity theft to me, part 2. I guess just another part of the Equifax hack that took place in 2018. But it includes Canada, Mexico, North America, Belgium, Spain, and the United Kingdom in Europe, and Israel, and the UAE in the Middle East. It's certain that the number and location of victims will keep growing as they go. Now, Mo Brooks has come out and made a statement. Let's see here. Make sure to tie this in. All right. By way of background and contrary to what people think, the courts are not designed to resolve an election dispute for President, Senate, or the House of Representatives up here in Washington, D.C., although they have done that in the past. The Constitution, along with accompanying federal statutes, are quite clear. The United States Congress has the final verdict, decree, whatever you want to call it, on every election contest involving members of the House, members of the United States Senate, and President of the United States. That's the way the Constitution was set up. More people that have oversight and opinion, the Founding Fathers felt the more stable it would be. But even up here on Capitol Hill, a lot of folks weren't familiar with those provisions of the United States Constitution, so he says, part of my job has been to educate people to say, wait a second, the courts are not the place this is supposed to be. Don't be surprised when the courts don't bother to hear these cases. They just dismiss them outright for lack of standing or some other procedural reason without getting to the substance of it, because it is not their job. It's Congress's job, okay? Now, he says we've caught people's attention on that. Of course, you and I, and the rest of the world, are quite worried about this because what we see is that 70% of Congress has been compromised. They've been bribed. They've been compromised with pictures of themselves on Epstein's Island or worse. And so we don't trust Congress. In fact, we think that Congress, by and large, and more large than by, because the Democrats have a very slight minority, and really, there are no Democrats. There's only the Democrat. It's just one Democrat. It may have 223 faces, but it is one Democrat because they march in lockstep. In fact, if you turned them all sideways, you would just see one Democrat. Nancy Pelosi would be here, and everybody would be shoulder to shoulder with her. And whatever she does, they do, and they march in lockstep. And that's what has us worried. And by the way, so glad that you're listening on the Truth Frequency Radio Network out there. It is the network that we stream through. It's the network we take phone calls on. You can see the call-in line up there. And that line will be open all night. I will endeavor to answer it at the breaks or very close to the breaks, before it or after it. And we're also streaming live on 6 other platforms. We have YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Face Live, Facebook Live, D-Live, and also on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. So that's 6 platforms all at once. I can take all the chats at one time except for TFR. I have to flip back and forth between screens to see that. So that's why I can see all of you. Now, also be aware that if you're listening on D-Live, in the last half hour of the program, I will give away lemons. So I'll select an amount. We'll put them out there. DLive has an algorithm it runs. It selects the people, I guess, by the amount of time they've been on DLive. I don't know how they select them. But then you will all get lemons in your balance, and that's how we make money in the blockchain world. Wild Boar 3000, good to see you out there. Yes, and China. I'm getting there. You're way ahead of the game here, Wild Boar on DLive. Good to see you out there, by the way. And Raz is afraid all the defense systems were hit from my information, meaning all nuclear. Not true. It isn't true, because a lot of that stuff is air-gapped. I was in the Air Force. My tour of duty was at the tropical paradise of Grand Forks, North Dakota. Yes, and our purview was the missile silos that carry all of the ICBMs behind those 40-ton concrete doors. My job as a little two-striper was to go out there and chip the ice off the rails so the doors would open smoothly. But nevertheless, all that stuff's air-gapped. The only way to get to that stuff is, like if you're a UFO flying overhead, then you can shut down missile silos autonomously. But that stuff's not connected to the internet. We have a separate system of that, and there's no way to get to it from the outside world. So let me get back to this congressional thing, because there has been sufficient systemic voter fraud. Okay, everybody's aware of that now. The whole world is aware of that. And I'm gonna play a young Serbian gentleman who survived that, or is the child of a survivor, but young anyway. And he provides an emotional and very clean, shall I say, analysis or testimony of what we are going through right now and what his advice to us is. And whether we're talking about Taiwan or Hong Kong, or whether we're talking about the UAE, or we're talking about Ecuador or the United States, it is the same words, okay? We know that this fraud took place. And we know that election theft has taken place. And to justify denying states with badly flawed election systems their electoral college vote submissions is treason. It's sedition as far as we're concerned. I don't think there's any question. Mo Brooks goes on to say, the overwhelming evidence, and it is compelling nationally, because of major systemic flaws with various election systems in various states. And I don't call them flaws. They're designs. When you take the ballots out of the back of the machine, around to the front of the machine, and you run them again, that is not a flaw. That is fraud. That's a crime. That is not a flaw, Mo Brooks. And he says, and so that's the backdrop. And hopefully I've been in a position where I can explain to people how compelling the evidence is, where they get past this mantra from the fake news media and by the socialist Democrats who keep screaming to the high heaven, there's no fraud, no fraud. Well, that's bunk. In other words, he's saying as clearly as he can, that's bullshit. You do your homework. There's only one rational, logical conclusion to breach. And that is that there's been massive voter fraud and election theft. I say it's an act of war, an attack on our election infrastructure that was purposeful by design. Yes, you got it right, William. Treason, fraud, voting, treason. Exactly correct. And so on January 6th at 1 p.m., we're going to have a roll call of the states. And that roll call of the states will be presided over by Vice President Mike Pence. It will be a joint session of Congress, at which point in time each state submits their purported electoral college votes. We in Congress have the absolute right to object to and reject those state submittals of electoral college votes. We believe that they're not worthy of our trust. The requirement is, first, that you have a House member and senator who jointly file that objection. I'm willing to do the House side, and I should add that there are lots of other congressmen who want to do it on the House side as well. More congressmen that want to object than we have states to object to. So I think there's only about a half a dozen. At least that's what I predicted on Easter Sunday on this program. There's some competition over who gets to object to which states, and we need one senator. And if that happens, that triggers a 2-hour debate to each state that is objected to, followed by a House floor vote and a Senate floor vote on whether to accept or reject the electoral returns of that particular state that has been objected to. Now, he says, I'm providing the House objectors. The question is simple. Will there be a senator who is willing to stand up for our country and the election system that is the bedrock of any republic in order to fight this voter fraud and election theft? Or are you going to do like some of our Surrender Caucus members want us to do? Just give in and say, that's the way it goes. They stole it fair and square. We're outgunned. We're not up to the fight. I don't believe in surrendering. I believe in fighting for our country. Well, I hear all that. I see where that is coming from. I don't have a lot of faith in it because it relies on the integrity of the congressman making that debate. Yes, Vice President Pence will be managing that debate, but what is it going to be? 2 minutes per side? 5 minutes per side? You know exactly what that's going to be. Every single time a Democrat gets up, it's going to be a campaign speech. Every single time a Republican gets up there, it's going to be a history lesson or a personal story or an anecdote or some point in the Constitution. Meaningless. Meaningless because they are missing the damn point. Okay? The point is that the CCP is working its plan. That's the point. The CCP has been ramping up from a Cold War against the free people of the world for more than 15 years. They have used the following weapons already against us and other countries. They have used fentanyl. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, issued a report Thursday of this week indicating that approximately 81,230 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States in the 12 months ending in May of 2020. That is a new record, Earth Explorers. Fentanyl is produced in China. Number 2, counterfeit cash. A total of 306 shipments that contained counterfeit currency have been seized in Chicago alone. A large amount of the seizures came during Operation Show Me the Money, an operation targeted at stopping the illegal trafficking of phony money. The currency came in many denominations, with $20 and $100 being more prevalent. More than 280 of these packages came from China, with all others coming from the Netherlands, United Kingdom, and Korea. Officers even seized counterfeit foreign currency that has been mailed to residents, mailed directly to residents. In total, officers seized more than $10.6 million. That's counterfeit cash. You know what that does? Oh, yeah, it makes your money suspect, of course. But it makes the entire monetary system suspect. Yes, it does. And when it circulates 1, 2, 3, 4 times through a community, it ruins Americans' faith in their own currency. And that's exactly what it's designed to do. And how about the made-for-TV virus? Okay, enough said about this numbers game. How about cyber hacking to obtain identities? Go back and look at my report on the Equifax hack of 2018, yielding 75 million Americans' identities. And finally, manipulating elections by using Venezuelan and U.S. malware technology. They have successfully launched a half a dozen secret satellites, tested ballistic missiles, and been to the moon and back without a single hitch. They have the world's largest navy, although it's not the strongest. They have stealth, hypersonic, and undersea drones, both of which were given to them by the Obama administration. Now it appears that they are building roads, and I don't mean silk roads. In addition to that, Russia is matching wits. Days after the U.S. blamed Russia for a hack attack of U.S. government computer systems, the Russian Defense Ministry, in a show of force, published a video on YouTube of a new hypersonic boost glide vehicle that's entering combat duty. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation said a hypersonic missile outfitted with an avant-garde nuclear boost glide vehicle was put into combat duty. The hypersonic boost glide vehicle can travel at not Mach 4 or 5 or 10 or 15, but Mach 20, and it can outmaneuver the world's most advanced missile defense systems. According to the defense blog, the avant-garde is mounted on top of an intercontinental ballistic missile. The avant-garde can carry a nuclear weapon of up to 2 megatons. 2 megatons. That's 8 times the size of the one that blew up in North Korea. There's a video out there on it. You can watch it. But in the Orenburg region, the rearmament of the first unit in the armed forces of the Russian Federation equipped with the avant-garde missile system continues. The newest intercontinental ballistic missile is installed in a silo launcher using a special transport and loading unit. It is mobile, which means it's very difficult to find when they move it around. Since Russia began touting its hypersonic missiles a couple of years ago, the hypersonic threat from Moscow has spooked the Pentagon. You know why? Because it was the Pentagon that came up with it first. And then the Russians did it better. And then the Chinese are doing it. I don't know how precise you have to be with a nuclear warhead, but when your targeting system can reach from Russia to the heartlands of both China and America in less than 20 minutes, the threat is very serious. It's not imagination, okay? Lieutenant General Samuel Greaves comments come amid reports that assess Russia will be capable of fielding a hypersonic glide vehicle, a weapon that no country can defend against this year. 2020, early 21. Today's development suggests Russian President Vladimir Putin has deployed an indefensible superweapon. And of course you know what this means. America has to have a weapon even more terrible. And we do. But let's get back to China. I digress. According to the satellite imagery of the India-China border and the communications intercepted from Chinese units, the Chinese military is working on a major road construction project that would dramatically improve its ability to move and support PLA forces against India. Now, I just want you to think about that for a second, because we didn't take those images. We didn't shoot those images. We stole them from the Chinese. You hear that? We know that we know what they're doing. And now you know what they're doing. And by the way, I was in Tibet and I saw the Chinese building roads through the upper Tibetan plateau. I saw it with my own eyes. They used Tibetan slaves with sledgehammers to build these roads. I saw it with my own eyes, face to face. The Indian government is concerned about the road, although it did not publicly denounce the project or demand a halt to construction of it as of Friday. Let's get ready to stop the TFR commercials, because otherwise I get a copyright strike on them. And so as soon as the music starts playing, I will, there we go. I'll mute them, and we'll keep going, and then I'll bring them back in as soon as their break is finished. Now, the Hindustan Times reported Friday of this week that the road and associated infrastructure will improve the PLA's ability to cross the Karakoram Pass. Now, this is very high up, okay? This is like 15 to 18,000 feet or more. I've been there. It's rough. I mean, at 18,000 feet, I mean, I wasn't acclimated to it. I'd only been there for about a week. But it's rough going. You get tunnel vision after about 50 yards of walking. You have to stop and catch your breath. There's not much air up there. So it's tough going to build this stuff. You have to use Tibetan slaves to make any progress with it at all. A senior Indian military commander told the Hindustan Times the Chinese are working on widening and strengthening the road to handle bigger vehicles carrying heavy equipment. Now, it's a funny thing about roads. You know, we talk about the Blitzkrieg that was built through Europe. It was more like an Autobahn, muddy roads that they had pre-World War II. They were no good for moving equipment. You couldn't march along roads like that. You'd have foot rot by the time you made it 50 miles. And so what Hitler did is he built roads that were capable of handling his Blitzkrieg, which means lightning war. And he put his troops not on foot, but on half tracks. And so they were able to move long distances in a very short amount of time. And it makes a big difference, not just with the initial attack, but with the reinforcements. Because, if you take, let's say, 400,000 men to the Indian border, and you're going to invade India, which I think would be a fun afternoon to watch on TV, but that's 1.2 million cheeseburgers every single day that has to go down that road, or else your troops are going to run out of gas. And I wouldn't want to take on the Indians hand-to-hand anyway, because both India and China have thousands of troops dug in along the border, even though it runs through some of the most inhospitable, very cold, and very high terrain in the world. We're talking about 15 to 18,000 feet. Indian officials who spoke to the Hindustan Times pointed to China's road construction project as an example of how the PLA talks about disengagement, but it keeps marching toward reinforcing its positions. We know this. We know this from the Monkey Works? No, not Monkey Works. Code Monkey, publishing the photographs of CCP soldiers posing with elected officials in our own government. We know this. They talk about tolerance. They talk about trade. They talk about agreements. And yet they march ever forward, reinforcing their positions. There's been another hack attack. They want to blame it on the Russians. They say the breach was disclosed by FireEye Tuesday of this week. I'm going to bring TFR back in about 20 seconds here. Though the firm did not attribute it to Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, it was detected in recent weeks. FireEye CEO Kevin Mandia said the hacker stole sensitive hacking tools that the company uses to detect weaknesses in the customer's computer networks. Welcome back, TFR. Glad you're out there. Had to put you guys on hold, but now we're back. So sorry, I might have missed a few seconds right after the intro music. Anyway, FireEye's CEO said the hacker stole sensitive hacking tools that the company uses to detect weaknesses in customers' computer networks and that could be turned back against the same customers or others. He said they primarily went after information related to certain government customers. We are witnessing an attack by a nation with top-tier offensive capabilities, Mandia said in a blog post. The attackers tailored their world-class capabilities specifically to target and attack FireEye. The firm went public with the incident to ensure that its 9,600 plus customers around the world and cybersecurity industry were aware and could take steps to ensure that they won't be breached with the stolen tools. The tools are used by FireEye red teams to test the company's cyber defenses. Of course, the FBI is on the job. I'm sure they're so scared. Preliminary indications show an actor with a high level of sophistication consistent with a nation state, said Matt Gorham, Assistant Director of the Bureau's Cyber Division. The reason I'm sharing this story with you is because there are individuals in the black hat world that can make an attack look like it came from a nation state, make it look like it came from the Russians. The SVR, which is the Russian intelligence service, they believe are the ones that made this attack. They did not leak the hacked DNC material. Rather, U.S. officials have said, a rival Russian intelligence service, the military spy agency GRU, separately hacked the DNC and leaked its emails to the online anti-secrecy organization WikiLeaks in an operation that disrupted the 2016 presidential campaign. We already know here at this station, this America Free Radio, that is a lie. That is a lie. That is not what happened. That is not how WikiLeaks got the emails. The SVR, by contrast, hacks for traditional espionage purposes, stealing secrets that could be useful for the Kremlin to understand the plans and motives of politicians and policymakers. Its operators have filched industrial secrets, hacked foreign ministries, and gone after coronavirus vaccine data. By the way, a lot of people are wondering, just how the hell did China come through this virus, and they're all back up and running full speed, with no vaccine? Riddle me this. Anyway, at this point, Mandia said, although the hackers were able to access internal systems, the firm has seen no evidence that they removed data from primary systems that store customer information. Of course, they didn't leave any evidence. The governments targeted did not necessarily include the United States, said a person familiar with the investigation. The hackers, why would you steal from yourself? The hackers operated clandestinely, using methods that counter security tools and forensic examination. They used a novel combination of techniques not witnessed by us or our partners in the past. Aliens! They were aliens! It was the equivalent, said one person familiar with the investigation, of a sniper shot. The attackers made off with a significant number, but not all of the firm's tools, the person said. FireEye has skilled people developing its red team tools by building off techniques observed in incidents and publicly available capabilities. In other words, they're using events that have already happened to practice for events that are going to happen. And that's why they're not ready when an event does happen, because they're always thinking in the past. Security companies are one of the top targets of nation-state operators and may have been successfully compromised over the years. So I guess what we're learning here, Mr. Mandia, is that we shouldn't use a security company. Huh? Because it's the security companies that are being targeted. I mean, any 14-year-old could keep their stuff safe. I keep my stuff safe. You know how I do it? It's very simple. Very simple indeed. I use external hard drives. external hard drives. You know how many files are on my computer? None. Only the programs are on my computer. The hard drives are sitting here on my desk. They're not connected to anything. You're not going to get to the information on my hard drives. Any 14-year-old knows this. The motive behind the breach is unclear. Really, you're not using your brain. Besides obtaining hacking tools, a nation state might have wanted to learn what FireEye knows about its capabilities and adjust its techniques accordingly, or it could study the tools for weaknesses that can be exploited. Mandia founded the cyber firm Mandiant, which was bought by FireEye in 2014 during the Obama administration. Mandiant made headlines with the 2013 report detailing the exploits of a prolific Chinese military hacking unit that targeted victims around the world, including the United States. Microsoft, by the way, is assisting FireEye with the investigation. Now you're probably going to get somewhere. So it's going to take weeks and maybe in some cases years for digital sleuths combing through U.S. government and private industry networks to get the answers. But that's too late. You know, the black hats in America are experts at making themselves look like Russians. In fact, they look so much like Russians that the white hats know that they are not Russians. What seems clear is that this campaign, which cybersecurity experts claim exhibits the tactics and techniques of Russia's SVR, Foreign Intelligence Agency, will rank among the most prolific in the annals of cyber espionage. And then there is counter espionage. Man, where is Maxwell Smart when you need him, huh? Agent 99, where are you? U.S. government agencies, including, I had a crush on Agent 99, I think, if that's who I'm thinking it is. U.S. government agencies, including the Treasury and Commerce departments, were among dozens of high-value public and private sector targets known to have been infiltrated as far back as March of this year. So Tuesday, Acting Secretary Chris Miller said there was so far no evidence of compromise. In the months, and I think he would know because he has Ezra Watnick and he has Kash Patel as his right and left hands. In the months since the update went out, the hackers carefully exfiltrated data, often encrypting it so it wasn't clear what was being taken and expertly covering their tracks. There's a Johns Hopkins cyber conflict expert, his name is Thomas Ridd, said the campaign's likely efficacy can be compared to Russia's 3-year 1990s Moonlight Maze hacking of U.S. government targets, including NASA and the Pentagon. A U.S. investigation determined the height of the documents stolen, if printed out and piled up, would triple the height of the Washington Monument. The Trump administration's not said which agencies were hacked, and so far, no private sector victims have come forward. Robert O'Brien, who is a national security advisor for President Trump, cut short an overseas trip to hold meetings on the hack and was to convene a top-level interagency meeting later this week. So much going on all at the same time. And you know what? It's all related. Everything is related. Everything is a push to make sure this election goes through for the Biden administration. Let's see. I got about 15 minutes left in this, and I want to get this in. And I need you to pay attention right now. Okay? As you already know, the coup d'etat against the Trump administration is nearing its end. Seriously. Both patriots and Marxists feel they are nearing the end of the attempt to destroy America. You feel it? I feel it. Patriots believe in some plan out there in orbit somewhere. ETs, white hats, spies, and tribunals are moving behind the scenes to capture and try and execute the bad guys. President Trump is in some 5D gambit about to pounce on all of them and usher in 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. I've heard it. And I believed it too. I'm a scientist. You know that. I deal in facts. And facts are direct observations and objective data collected through experimentation and trials. The truth is that I have little proof to back up any of this. There is conjecture. There are coincidences and even shipments and alignments. But as we say in the South, I hear a lot of clucking, but I don't see any eggs. Marxists are very powerful. They are just a modern version of a battle strategy that is much older than this earth. It has been used on many worlds and has robbed God of much more than a third of the host of heaven. Lucifer cannot be killed. He can only be imprisoned. Most of you cannot be killed either, but you most certainly can be imprisoned. The beauty of this ancient strategy is that it forms its own prison of your own design and your own desire. You know what this radio program is? You know, where the past meets the future? Oh, we call it the present. But that is much more of a headlamp than it is a laser beam, now isn't it? Humans are on a different glide path than demons. We were awarded mortality as a way to grow, love, create life in our own image and expand through overcoming failure. Demons were not awarded this experience. They stole it. The DNA added by Lucifer through Eve's perfect genome allows demons to be born into a suitable body here on this planet. Call it a biological hack. When the DNA gets to a certain combination, demons may incarnate here, right next to you. They are born evil. There is no good in them, and they cannot do any good or tell the truth unless it's woven into a lie. The best lies have truth in them, you know. Now there are millions of them here, among billions of us. Lucifer blesses them with supernatural success and power. He has other off-world servants here as well, although there are rules governing their actual involvement with us. Once it can be removed, demons in the flesh and their converts can deal directly with the fallen angels. They are provided eons of wisdom and mathematical advantages by these timeless beings. The one thing you really need to come to terms with is that God is absolutely not in control of this world. Lucifer is in control. The ironic thing is that although he is powerful, his minions are not very smart. They have no will of their own, not like you. You have free will. You have the pathway of God within you. You can be as powerful as Jesus. He told you this. But you do not become. You choose to crawl on your belly and whine and complain. You choose to participate in the game with Marxists who own all the equipment and all the playing pieces of the game. You still think we have freedom. You hear every single minute of the day that Joe Biden is president, and yet you do nothing. As January 20th marches closer and closer, Americans choose to abhor and then tolerate and then embrace wickedness. True Americans would never kill a baby in the womb, but they happily pay for someone else to do it. Patriots, they know we're in a war, but they refuse to fight, opting instead to get one more paycheck and shop or rally. Even then, they're called Nazis or right-wing extremists or worse. The frustrating thing is how many people, left and right, love their country and don't want to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another. They want America to return to what it was, without big tech censorship, tyrannical dictators hiding behind masks, or schools that indoctrinate rather than educate. That's why so many people, liberal and conservative, voted for Trump in staggering numbers. So staggering that massive voter fraud was necessary to pry him out of office. It's why the progressives in power stopped the vote count in the middle of the night in critical states and literally and metaphorically stuffed the ballot boxes for Biden. I want you to meet someone. He's a Serbian young man. He could be one of millions. He speaks English well enough that I think you need to hear what he has to say. He is the child of survivors of what America is going through right now. The only difference is that they fought and they lost. Americans saved them twice. But the biggest question in the world right now is, will we save ourselves? I'll bring him on. Here we go.
Hello, Americans. I guess you forgot something. And maybe a Serbian guy shall tell you what to do. Strange, huh? I never put my foot on American soil. I never touched America, but somehow I love America. I love your values. I love what you represent. I love freedom. And now I see something that I seen 20 years ago when I was a high school kid. It was October of 2000 and my country was in its most important day in recent history. Our dictator Milosevic stole the elections. Everything. We knew what happened. You know what happened. Now it's the question, what are you going to do? In October of 2000, my country done something extraordinary. After being obedient for 10 years, after sitting in tanks to pointlessly die, after many treasons and hopeless future, we somehow decided that it was time to do something, to fight for freedom. Milosevic stole the elections, and people took the streets. It started with strikes, civil disobedience, and then all the Serbia came to Belgrade. More than 1 million people. In a country that total population was maybe 8 million. So basically everyone who could walk went to Belgrade to protest. Milosevic had very serious people on his side, at least on paper. Those were warriors for 10 years. It's what they were doing. And somehow, when they have seen that sea of people, they decided to back off. They have seen that they would fight lost cause. His general said no. His police chiefs said no. people just overwhelmed him. There was even a guy who took a bulldozer, and he used that bulldozer to destroy state television. You think that you're the only one who have fake news? Kids, you know nothing. You don't know what fake is. Now the question is, do you have a guts? Do you have a guts to take the streets and reclaim what is yours? You know that they stole the elections. You know it's obvious to everyone with 2 brain cells. And up to this moment you were smart. They wanted to incite racial war, but you were smart. Thanks God you were smart. You didn't took the bite. Black Americans decided to be Americans, and white Americans realized that black Americans are, guess what, also Americans. I'm proud of you, but now you have one more battle. Because this will not be a war, this will be a battle. They are never going to be as weak as now, and you are never going to be as strong as now. If you lose now, it will be game over. Once installed, socialism will never leave. Never. Not a single country in Eastern Europe was able to get rid of it. Not even after decades. Not even after 2 generations. World that you know will stop to exist. You will never going to reclaim it again. Never. Russians couldn't, Ukrainians couldn't, Baltic guys couldn't, Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, all Yugoslavia, Bulgarians, Romanians, Albanians, not a single one was able to overthrow them in real sense of manner. All of us kept living mediocre lives, working for $500 per month. And that was it. All because God knows when we lost. And we were not the only ones who fought. Romanians were even crazier. They overthrown Ceausescu by rushing towards Kalashnikovs barehanded. He sent tanks on them. They didn't care. They had nothing to lose. Even today you can see bullet holes on facades in Budapest. They are never going to repair them, just to remember. Czechs fought, lost. Poles lost. All of them. Now it's your turn. If you don't like freedom, you don't like it. That's it. Nobody is going to help you. You cannot save people from themselves. Can you save yourself from yourselves? If you don't believe in God, it's okay. Read Solzhenitsyn, Gulag Archipelago, first 20 pages. There is one beautiful sentence. Not a single honest man will left. You will not be able to live honest life. It will not be about meritocracy, it will not be about skills, it will not be about knowledge, it will not be about any good quality of a human being. It will be just collection of some points. Are you Serb enough? Are you Croat enough? Are you black enough? Are you white enough? Multiplied by gender, multiplied it by God knows what they are going to think about. Have you been loyal to the party? Have you not been loyal to the party? And there will be no 2 parties anymore. We don't have 2 parties in Europe. We have 1 party with 10 names. We have 1 policy. We have 1 everything one. We don't vote anymore. It's pointless. We have no leaders anymore. It's pointless. There is no reason anymore. Look what they have done during the lockouts. They had no authorities over you, and you just obeyed. They destroy your businesses, you obeyed. They took your streets and loot everything, you obeyed. They come to your neighborhoods, you've done nothing. They come to your house, you have done nothing. What the hell is wrong with you? You have done nothing, you idiots! And what are you going to do now? Are you going to take that goddamn bulldozer and bulldoze everything? or you will just stay obedient sheep until you got slaughtered. My people were slaughtered in Nazi Croatia. They were walking towards the pit holes and they were thrown alive together with their women and children. That's what Marxism is doing, you sheep. Learn from history. What the hell? You have 3 or 4 more days to decide your life, you idiots. After that, it will game over. Join the police. Join the party. Do this now. Go, join them. Spit on your flag. Spit on everything. Spit on cross. Spit on everything that was your value. Enjoy the enemy. Go ahead, survive like a maggot. If you believe in God, well, read 3 passages. It's not a lot. Matthew 10 something. Mark 13 something. And Luke 12 something. Choose your side. You want to be in permanent lockdown? Go ahead, choose your side. Do you want to be undervalued just because of the color of your skin or God knows what's in? Choose your side. What are you waiting for? Aliens to save you? Cthulhu? Sasquatch? You don't believe in Christ, you don't believe in reason, you don't believe in logic, you don't believe in history. What is your belief? In what do you believe? Spirits? Yeah, I got emotional. But you haven't. So why would I care? It's your life, it's your liberty, it's your pursuit of happiness. So pursue it. If you don't believe me, ask billion people. From Kamchatka to Cuba. Ask them. What do I know? I'm a stupid guy. Billion people have experienced this. And now you want to just surrender. Go, surrender. Go to hell.
So now you see, we're not the only ones that see it. We're not the only ones that have been through this. Others have been through this already. Others have seen what we're seeing right now. We still have time. There's something we can do about it. There's something I can do about it. So January 6th, I and 5 million other patriots are going to be in Washington, D.C. Our voices will reach heaven and hell. Both will be called out to fight. I want you to be with me. I will be at the corner of 12th and K Streets on the 6th. It's a few blocks from the White House and about 3/4 of a mile from Congress. The occupants of both buildings will hear us. And the whole world will see us. This is not a rally. This is a battle that must be won, no matter what. Are you with me? I'll be the one with the Bikers for Trump shirt on. You'll be able to find me. All right, let's talk a little bit about this Marxist plan, because you need to know what's going on. Read some of the books, any of them. And if you have read them, then get it for a friend. It's a great time of year to share a book. Bring TFR back in right now. Okay, welcome back. Truth Frequency Radio has now joined us again. Thank you for sticking with me through that video. So what is the Marxist plan? You know, we talk about the plan all the time. The Marxist proposals called for Biden's team to work with Congress and governors to advance a secular agenda at all levels of government, taking into account the current makeup of the federal courts and new unfavorable precedents that your administration will have to contend with. They go on to say, President Trump, and I need you to listen very closely to this, because this is going to hit home for a lot of you. You need to know what the plan is. I'm glad Robbie says, if I can afford the drive, I'll be there. Well, I'll be there for sure. See, yes, and I did see Code Monkey's tweet, Disgusto, and I also reviewed Monkey Works. He's talking about some of the planes that are flying right now. That clip is available on YouTube. It's hard to find. I just stumbled upon it. I edited it down so I could fit it into my format, some pauses and things that didn't really apply to us. So I just focused it on us. And I sent him a note and asked him to listen in tonight because I was going to give him a little bit more exposure. Oh, that's fun. Delina says, today in Calgary, cops threatened to tase a young man for playing hockey outside without a mask. Well, it's just like in California, they attacked and arrested a man who was surfing by himself out on the water. Yeah, so they took him down too. And Sun Rabbit says the problem is that the young people and intellectuals don't want to go into politics, and I don't blame them. You know, I don't really do politics on this program. People call it a political program, but it's not. I don't do politics. I do government. What I talk about are systems of government and history. I bring the history to bear to the present. I extrapolate and put dots together to find out what's going to go on in the future. Now, last week, on Monday, I was on Alex Marlowe's program, Breitbart Radio. Breitbart Radio is on Patriot 125 on Sirius XM. It has a rather large audience. I say it is one of the larger news talk audiences in the country. So while I was on there, before I was on there, they were talking about election fraud, and they were talking about, you know, the 5 states, the 6 states that stopped counting, and this ballot stuffing and all of that. And they wanted court action and this and the other thing, and people were complaining about from their own points of view. And I called in, I said, Alex, I want to take this in a little different direction. And I said, I think this is the almost penultimate attack by the CCP against our election infrastructure. And it is an attack which requires a military response. And I went on to describe the attacks that have happened against the middle class since 1929 in this country. And they have been effective in taking us down over and over and over again. Whether it's the crash of 1929, whether it's the 30 Years' War that started in 1916 and went all the way almost to 1946. Millions of young men all over the world died, but they all came from your house, from your neighbors' homes. They didn't come from the rich. They came from the middle class. And then I talked about the crash of 2008, where all those homes were foreclosed upon, millions and millions of homes. Those weren't the homes of the rich. They were the homes of the middle class. The rich came in and bought those homes up for pennies on the dollar, and now they control all of the condoed up smaller areas and downtown areas and inner city areas that were once occupied by the middle class. And that's what they're doing now. This mask over your face is designed to put you in solitary confinement. It's designed to break you emotionally. It's designed to shatter your community so that you cannot be together, love together, speak with one another, trust one another. And so I said this requires a military response. And Alex agreed with me. And I hung up, and 5 seconds later, Secretary of State Pompeo called in, and he heard what I said, and he responded in uncharacteristically calm voice. I mean, Pompeo can be pretty direct, okay? He could be pretty direct, but he was very calm on the radio, and he was trying to calm the people down. He did not really want you to see what I was showing you. So this is the Marxist plan inside the Biden administration to come. President Trump has, quote, empowered the religious right in ways no other administration has before, making significant advances in enacting their Christian nationalist agenda, close quote. Is that what this is? Are we a Christian nationalist agenda, America first? The proposal outlines recommendations for reversing certain policies and proactively implementing new rules that would incorporate Marxism into federal governance and disentangle entrenched religious interests from federal policy. Some of the recommendations in the document are related to Homeland Security policy. The rise of white Christian nationalism is a national security threat. Read the document. You heard it. We recommend you encourage the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice to dedicate resources to de-radicalization programs aimed at hate groups, including, but not limited to, white nationalists. Increase monitoring of such groups, including the online environment, and take action to address increased hate crimes toward minority faith communities and shift rhetoric to label violent white nationalist extremists as terrorists. We are a threat. We are terrorists. Do you believe that? Do you think that 100 million Americans with 300 million guns and 2 billion rounds of ammunition are a threat? If we were, you would know about it. In the area of education policy, the document suggests that the U.S. Attorney General confer with the Department Office of Legal Counsel to issue a memorandum regarding enforcement of the Establishment Clause in public schools, including students' protection from school-sponsored proselytization and teaching accurate, evidence-based secular curriculum rather than creationism in the schools. Now there is something that the Attorney General needs to focus on. Homeschools. Homeschools need to be arrested and sent to prison as a national security threat. No more church schools. No more online teaching of terrorism called the Bible. These will be arrested by the new DOJ. The organization advocates for Biden to change adoption-related policies as well. Yes. Oh, wait till we hear this. Reverse the Trump administration's policies that have allowed faith-based government-funded contractors to provide adoption and foster care services, to discriminate on the basis of religion, and work with Congress to pass the Every Child Deserves a Family Act. Priority will be given to non-Christian homes. Gay and transgender homes will be allowed to adopt children. Foster homes will be audited to make sure there are no Bibles, no churches, and certainly no Christmas. In the report, the group also argues that taxpayer dollars should not be funneled either to contractors or grantees that discriminate on the basis of religion, or to programs that promote a sectarian agenda, such as private religious schools, crisis pregnancy centers, and abstinence-only sex education. According to the document, the government should not do business with organizations or contractors that will use government funds to advance a sectarian agenda or discriminate against its employees or program beneficiaries on the basis of religion. That never happens. The proposal advises Biden that if performing the duties of a government contract comes into conflict with the requesting grantee or contractor's sincerely held religious beliefs, it can and should seek funding elsewhere. So now you know where we're at. Now you know what the agenda is. Now you know where we're headed. Now let's talk a little bit about the hurricane. No, not that kind of hurricane. Let me see what's going on in the chat room real quick here. Mona is saying people are organizing protests to block the entrances to shopping centers right after Christmas. No one gets in to work or shop. I hope what you're talking about are not the mom and pop shops, right? You're talking about Walmarts and Targets and the mall, right? Because we want middle class people to go back to work. I really like the conversation that one gentleman gave to the city council in Shasta, California. He was talking about the fact that he had served in 2 theaters of war for this country. He's seen the worst that humanity has to offer, and he doesn't want to go back there. But he happily will to defend this country. And he said the people need to go back to work. You need to open up the county and take off the masks. Take the masks off you and your children, and let's go back to work. Let us do what we do. And he said this: if you don't do what we say right now, very soon this will no longer be peaceful protests out this building. I will not be at this podium in these clothes making this plea to you. We're going to do something else. We want our country back. As virus spreads, CDC is drawing up an urgent battle plan, reads the headline of a December 4th article in the Times. And it's written by Roni Karen Rabin and Apdorva Mandavili. Now, they demand that everybody immediately be put into solitary confinement. Wear a useless mask. Stay at home. Stop working. Stop shopping. Stop socializing. And above all else, stop rallying. The reference is to a policy guidance document published by the Centers for Disease Control in its journal Morbidity and Mortality Weekly. That's light reading, isn't it? Be the heebie-jeebies. The Times always quotes a former this or a former that. It just means they got fired, right? Anyway, the Obama CDC director, Dr. Thomas R. Friedman, he was fired, said that the document shows that the CDC is awakening from its politics-induced coma. Look who's calling the kettle black. If you want to see people in a coma, go to Walmart today. Go to Target. There is your political induced coma. Now, further into the article, the Times claims that asymptomatic individuals are responsible for about 50% of the transmissions. Really? That's the claim. I call 100% bullshit. Think about that article just for a second. People that are not sick, how do you even know who they are? They are not sick. 50% of what? 50% of people who do not walk around in a politically induced coma are responsible for getting the 50% who are sick, the 50% sick with the flu. See how utterly ridiculous this is? Moreover, the CDC knows that this statement is false. The current CDC leadership, not the ones that have been fired from the old Obama administration, the current CDC leadership is quoting, they know this is pure crap. They also know that false claims such as this will be uncritically parroted by mainstream media outlets like the Times and other TV and radio outlets that serve to manufacture consent for the authoritarian lockdown measurements that Biden favors, including business closures or restrictions and executive mask-wearing orders. Man, George Clooney's out there. Wear the damn mask, yeah? Why don't you go get a job, buddy? The false claims puts everyone in a state of fear of silent spreaders who never develop symptoms of COVID, but who nonetheless efficiently transmit the virus. In other words, the people who are wearing masks in a coma are being told that the people who are not wearing masks are trying to kill them. Electric toothbrushes kill more people than COVID. In truth, the scientific evidence indicates that asymptomatic transmission is extremely rare. People who become infected with COVID but never develop the symptoms appear not to be a major contributing factor in the community spread of the coronavirus. Instead, their own tracing studies have documented a microscopic number of cases of evident pre-symptomatic, not asymptomatic, but pre-symptomatic transmission. The facts do not support this explanation of community spread. It's called the flu for a reason. It has been happening this way for hundreds of years. The estimates reported, matter-of-factly, by the media come from modeling studies that have serious methodological flaws and limitations, biasing results artificially toward a higher proportion of pre-symptomatic spread. In other words, they use bad statistics. The CDC also knows it is not going to be fact-checked by the media, self-proclaimed fact-checkers. Why? Because the Marxists want us to be locked down. They want the middle class to be destroyed. Articles like the one in the New York Times that repeat such false claims, they're not going to get flagged on Facebook or other social media for spreading misinformation, and users who share the misinformation will not be penalized in social media algorithms or have their accounts suspended. This video might, but those articles spreading these lies are just fine with the tech giants. Well, I challenge the fact checkers to prove me wrong by doing objective journalism for a change and either applying their own standards universally rather than selectively fact-checking only information that doesn't align with certain political agendas, or by abandoning this whole fact-check charade altogether. So we know where this is going. We know exactly where this is going. All right, I do have a caller. Let's see here. Actually, I've not been on hold very long, but I got about 5 minutes left. Let's go and take the call. Let's see, Virginia, you are on the program. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brooks. I know you like to keep up on the latest, and you're very good about staying on top of things. Don't know if you saw an article that came out this week from AP. It basically said that the way they were getting the numbers in Virginia, certain regions in particular, they're using the sewage. And that's how they're monitoring the cases.
Really?
They talk about being SHIT by your neighbors. I mean, how does that work? They haven't worried about the water or the sewage in years. So now you want to monitor that to say who has the virus and who doesn't and how many cases.
Wow.
I got another one for you, and I can't hold this back. Got an email from the bank. I'll say bank. It's really a credit union, saying I had a new debit credit card coming out. So I thought it was fraud. Happened to be in the credit union this week. Asked, did you send me an email? Yeah, we sent you an email. You got a new one. All you got to do is, wait for it to come in the mail and then turn it on. So she says, let me show you. And I happen to know the teller. She says, let me show you what it looks like. Well, no. She pulls it out of her own wallet, her own card. It has no numbers on the front of it. It does not have her name. It does not have numbers on the back of it or anything. All it has is a small, tiny chip. So the interesting part of this is when I go to make a purchase at a different store, they always card me. And they say, okay, that's your credit card? Let me see your ID to verify.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
appreciate that.
Yeah, how are they going to check ID? How are they going to check ID if your name isn't on it?
Exactly. Not only that, Brooks, but you tell me how you buy something online if it doesn't have numbers on your debit card or credit card.
Ah, that's a very good point. You can't make an online purchase if you don't know what your account number and your CVC code on the back is.
So they're going to limit you even more. Didn't know if you knew about those two things. Thought they were important to tell you.
Very interesting. I appreciate that very, very much. Wow. I knew the banks were going to try something.
We really appreciate the work you're doing, and we thank you for all the information you put out to us.
Wow. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'm going to be driving up through your area on the 5th because I'm going to D.C. on the 6th with 5 million of my friends.
Well, that's great. I appreciate that, and the rest of us appreciate that, and hopefully that'll make a change.
It will.
And by the way, I know it says resistance is futile as far as the board goes. I'm not about resistance. I'm about blocking and stopping these people.
Yeah, we say resistance hell. We're going to persist.
Yeah, I hear you. We're all working it.
All right.
But wanted to give you those 2 tips tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Good night. Wow. Great call. Great call. All right. We got about 2 minutes left before I start this section on the Biden defense briefings. Well, I probably have enough time. No, I kind of added to it a little bit because I always write my own stuff, take these articles and then write my own angles to it. But what I did want to let you know is, go ahead and do a quick plug here. January 9th is going to be the next Manifestation Masterclass. So it's going to be the 9th, which is a Saturday, and then the 16th, which is the following Saturday, is part 2 of that. So it's 2 Saturdays at noon Eastern Time. First one's about 2 hours and 45 minutes, something like that. It goes quick because there's a lot of information in it. And the second is about an hour, a little longer than an hour. We do some question and answer at the end of that too. But you're not only going to learn how to manifest the future, you're going to learn how to make it happen in a journal so you can record it in advance and watch it unfold. So join us on the 9th and the 16th. The links are at my website, brooksagnew.com. And click on the webinar link and sign up. So TFR is going to go to break here in about 9 seconds or so. As soon as we hear the music, we'll put them on hold, and we will continue on. We're going to talk about the Biden administration's hearings in the Pentagon being curtailed a little bit for an interesting reason. I think you'll find interesting. All right, there's our music. So let's go now to talk a little bit about this. It is difficult to have briefings about the defense of America when the enemy of America is sitting in the room. Okay? Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller ordered a Pentagon-wide halt to cooperation with the transition of President-elect Biden, shocking officials across the Defense Department, senior administration officials said. Now, this isn't just the defense briefings, okay? The Pentagon is a big building. Thousands and thousands of people work there. It has several floors. It has several hallways. Of course, it's 5-sided. But to say nobody in the Biden administration gets anything until further notice. The latest is that Biden Transition Director Johannes Abraham contradicted the Pentagon's official response to this story a couple of days ago, telling reporters, "Let me be clear, there was no mutually agreed upon holiday break," which means they got evicted. They got kicked out. Now, I need you to understand how significant this is. We're supposed to be, according to the fake stream news, be having a peaceful transition of power. But this is what I am seeing. And I quote, "In fact, we think it's important that briefings and other engagements continue during this period as there's no time to spare, and that's particularly true in the aftermath of ascertainment delay." And that's what Abraham is saying. But Miller said in a statement following the publication of the story, and I quote, "At no time has the department canceled or declined any interview. After the mutually agreed upon holiday, which begins yesterday, we will continue with the transition and rescheduled meetings from today. But there's always a little but, always a little something behind the scenes." And sure enough, there is with this story. The Trump administration officials left open the possibility cooperation would resume after the holiday pause, but they just left open the possibility. They didn't exactly say when or that it would positively absolutely happen. The officials were unsure what prompted Miller's action or whether President Trump approved. Well, I'll tell you why it matters. Miller's move, and you got to understand who Miller is. Miller is a 400-plus missions in special forces. That would be Green Beret, Vietnam on up. And this is a battle-hardened soldier. Hang on a second.
Never seem to notice all the days pass through. But in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
So I want to talk a little bit about what it is that's going on behind the scenes. You got Abraham on the one hand saying, wait a minute, whoa, there was no mutually agreed pause. We're on a time schedule here. We need to know what's going on. But I'm saying, when the enemy's in the room, you have to kind of couch, what you're saying. And when the subject material that you're talking about is sensitive, and there's a possibility that the people that are in the room may not have your best interests at heart in learning this information. What information might that be? This is why this story is so important. Miller's move stunned officials throughout the Pentagon. It was the biggest eruption yet of animus and mistrust toward the incoming Biden team from the top level of the Trump administration. Fury at the Biden team among senior Pentagon officials escalated after, and you want to know what it was, this is it. After the Washington Post published a story Wednesday of this week. Actually, it was Wednesday night. And it revealed how much money would be saved if Biden halted construction of America's southern border wall. He designed to rob the Defense Department's budget on the defense of the southern border. Now, the Trump officials blamed the leak on the Biden transition team because the information had the pattern of language that was obtained in the briefing. In the briefing in the Pentagon, the budget, that is the Defense Department budget for supporting the construction of the southern border wall, was discussed. And Wednesday, it appeared in the freaking newspaper, which means it came from that meeting, and it came from the Biden people in that meeting. Meetings between President Trump's team and the Biden team are going on throughout the government after a delayed start as the government tries to accommodate a transition while not compromising the United States. And then, Thursday night, when Trump fired Defense Secretary Miller, after he fired Esper, he put Miller in place. Miller ordered officials throughout the building to cancel scheduled transition meetings. They didn't just say, okay, we're all going on holiday, everybody out. No. Throughout the building, thousands and thousands of employees, dozens of apartments from the GSA, yes, the GSA right there. The GSA has their own building, but there are GSA officials inside the Pentagon that deal with defense contracts. That's the General Services Administration. All kinds of business goes on inside the Pentagon, and all of it was canceled. So the senior Defense Department official sought to downplay the move, calling it a simple delay of the last few scheduled meetings until after the new year. It's much more important than that. He said, we had fewer than 24 remaining meetings on the schedule today and next week. The DoD staff working the meetings were overwhelmed by the number of meetings. These same senior leaders need to do their day jobs and were being consumed by transition activities. With the holidays, we are taking a knee for 2 weeks. We are still committed to a productive transition. So when they cut off the Biden team for 2 weeks, it means everything that relates to the defense of the United States of America goes dark for the Bidens. They don't know what's going on. They don't know the military actions that are taking place. This is a very important thing because in the next 2 weeks, very important things are going to take place, right? Because January 20th is coming up. All right. And what else is going on? Give me your old, your tired, and their pensions, please. As you know, I have reached that chronological age where I'm able to access all that money that I've been putting for over 50 years into a special account called the Social Security account. Well, it's no secret that the Democrat Party, the new incoming Marxists, want to eliminate the seniors' income and medical programs that citizens have paid into all of their lives. They constantly talk about massive cuts to both Social Security and Medicare. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the congresswoman from Somalia are known to have called the programs entitlements. They are not entitlements. They are benefits, which we have paid into way longer than you've been alive. When you pay 13.5% of your income into a plan for 50 years, you expect to get something back out of it. And now, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi has publicly stated her disdain for the systems that our seniors have earned and which keep them from becoming homeless and destitute. At a recent $5,000 a plate fundraising event for orphaned San Francisco lemurs, Pelosi, drink in hand, drunk, raged about the greatest generation and their place in America today. I'll quote, I might need a prop here. These people are leeches. All they do is suck from the public teat. Take. Close quote. There are people in this country who need things like welfare and food stamps. Yes, it's income assistance. I used food stamps myself. I had 4 small kids at home. I was going to college. I considered it part of the student loan. Oh, I've paid it back many, many times over and happy to do so. We help them get back on their feet when times are tough. But people on Social Security fall into a whole different category, they said. They're not taking government money temporarily. They have no intention of rejoining the workforce and once again becoming productive members of America. They just want to take forever and want no conditions to be placed on the money. Social Security residents are nothing more than burdens on society. Well, thank you, Ms. Pelosi. After having 13.5% of my income sequestered by the federal government and held interest-free for 50 years, I expect to recover that money when I retire, and God help anybody who gets in my way. The Ponzi scheme to have working Americans support retired Americans worked so well when it was designed. The Democrats could not help but rob the profits over and over again. I want them to leave the account alone. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the young Marxists see a big fat bunch of money sitting there, and they want it. I can't defend it, so it does no good to say, come and take it, because they will. Oh, by the way, on this day, December 20th, 2014, Gwoza, Nigeria, dozens of elderly villagers were rounded up and executed. 50 were killed. Now you see how the Marxists work. All right. We talked a little bit about Hurricane COVID. I want to talk to you a little bit on a molecular biological basis, and I want to set the record straight. Let me check my chat room here, make sure I'm not getting away from myself too much, because we're a little over halfway through. O negative blood types are the least infected. Well, I'm O positive. I had it and licked it. It was nothing. I've had way worse than that. Scott Hare, best one I have heard since the vaccine started to show adverse reactions. Yeah. If one individual dies to save many, it is acceptable. No. So let's talk a little bit about this DNA changing vaccine and all of that. I don't want to get too much into that because I think there's another way. In fact, I know there's another way. I quote, "You will not get this disease." There you go. That's definitive right there. Oh, you want me to back it up? Okay, well, here we go. Appearing as a witness Tuesday morning before the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, which held a hearing on early outpatient treatment, an essential part of COVID solution, Dr. Pierre Corey, president of Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance, FLCCC, called for the government to swiftly review the already expansive and still rapidly emerging medical evidence on ivermectin. Some of you have asked me about it, so I did my research, and I'm prepared to give you this report. My son gave me the name of the drug, ivermectin. I started doing my research. Didn't take long after that. I stumbled upon, coincidentally, Dr. Corey's report, which just came out. Dr. Corey testified that ivermectin is effectively a miracle drug against COVID-19. The data shows the ability of the drug ivermectin. It's in my notes. It's all available. All these links and everything will be with you. All you have to do is go to my website at americafreeradio.com, click on the show notes, and this whole thing will be available for you. I will make all of this available for you. But listen to this piece because I want to put it together for you so you have the facts in my voice with my analysis. To keep those with early symptoms from progressing to the hyperinflammatory phase of the disease and even to help critically ill patients recover, it also can work as a prophylactic, and I'll explain that in just a second. He's asking the NIH, the CDC, and the FDA to urgently review the latest data and then issue guidelines for physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants to prescribe ivermectin for COVID-19. Now listen closely, because this is not just an internal medicine guy. This is not just a guy who did a study in France or whatever. There's only 5 of these guys like him in the United States. People are dying at unacceptable and untold rates, Dr. Corey told the Senate panel. I am a lung and ICU specialist, and all I do right now is take care of COVID-19 patients dying of breathlessness in ICUs. By the time they get to the ICU, it is nearly impossible to save most patients. They simply cannot breathe. Although encouraged by the apparent successes of vaccines, Dr. Corey said doctors trying to save lives flooding into ICUs now consider the lack of governmental guidance and research on effective early at-home preventive treatment unconscionable when hospitals are overflowing with more than 100,000 patients admitted and record numbers of deaths are reported every single day. Ivermectin and the components in the eye mask protocol could save hundreds of thousands of people around the globe who do not have to die while they await the widespread distribution of the vaccines. Corey said the amount of evidence the FLCCC Alliance has amassed and compiled into a manuscript far exceeds the level required for a compassionate use authorization as defined by the FDA. It happened for remdesivir, a drug with far less supportive evidence and much, much higher cost. Ivermectin's about remdesivir is about $1,000 a dose. Yeah, it's expensive. Why can't it happen for ivermectin given this level of evidence? How many more trials have to be done when our manuscript details results from over 20 studies with over 10 of them randomized controlled trials. We are in a pandemic. We are at war. Stop pretending this is peacetime, where we are conducting business as usual. The NIH must rapidly review the data and make a recommendation. The FLCCC Alliance has been blocked in attempts to disseminate scientific information about ivermectin on Facebook and other social media, with the FLCCC's pages repeatedly being shut down by Facebook. They don't want you to be cured. Furthermore, after the group's December 4th, 2020 press conference in Houston, no major U.S. media outlets reported the FLCCC's pleas for help from the federal government to act in order to bring this pandemic to an end. Nor did any representative from the CDC, the NIH, or World Health Organization contact them. That's why I am talking about it tonight on America Free Radio. He said, I don't know how much longer I can do this, especially knowing that it will all be needless death from here on out, given there is a readily available solution, a solution that cannot be dismissed or ignored. There is a critical need to inform healthcare providers in this country and the world. The leadership of our governmental healthcare agencies has a great responsibility here. All we ask is for the NIH, the CDC, and the FDA to conduct rapid review of the literature reviewed in this presentation and provide guidance to the country's health organizations. Let me be perfectly clear, he said. If you take ivermectin, you will not get this disease. Period. If we do nothing, the present trend will continue, and history will judge. The American people will cry for answers, or will praise the courage of those elected to represent their interest. So, people want to know, where do you get it? What if your doctor won't prescribe it to you? You know, you're not sick. You're 40. You don't want to get it. You don't want to get it. You have a compromised immune system, or you believe that you do. Where do you get it? What if your doctor won't prescribe it to you? If you're in the age and physical condition that is considered high risk, it's even more important. The same drug is available in veterinary medications. There's a drug called Iverhart, I-V-E-R-H-A-R-T, Iverhart, by a company called Virbac, V-I-R-B-A-C. It's a source you can access anywhere, from eBay to Amazon. It costs about $35 for 6 doses. A person weighing about 150 pounds would take 1 per week as a prophylactic. If you're showing symptoms, it will stop the virus from replicating and should allow your immune system to catch up. And for God's sake, take off the damn mask before it kills you. The FLCCC Alliance was organized in March of 2020 by a group of highly published, world-renowned critical care physician scholars with the academic support of allied physicians from around the world to research and develop life-saving protocols for the prevention and treatment of COVID-19 in all stages of illness. Their Math Plus hospital treatment protocol, and I list it right here in my notes. If you want it, I'm giving it to you. You can get it in my notes. All you got to do is go there and get it. I have it in my notes. Get it. I'll put the link in here for you. You can go to their paper and read their results. It was introduced, and while there is no level 1 evidence that this cocktail will prevent or mitigate against COVID-19, we believe there's significant evidence supporting the efficacy of the individual agents included in the prophylactic protocol. This protocol must be part of an overall strategy, which includes common sense public health measures, social distancing, avoidance of large groups of people that you don't know, blah, 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 all that stuff. For a while, just to take the edge off, okay? Once this virus cannot multiply, and it will not be able to multiply if this drug is in your system, you won't be a breeder for the virus. It ends. It ends. Do you understand what that means? The virus goes away. It should be noted that there is emerging evidence suggesting that ivermectin will or may be highly effective in the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. It is important to emphasize that all of the medications included in the prophylactic regimen are inexpensive, they are all safe, and they are all widely available. All right? Vitamin D3. It doesn't get any more available than that. Go to Walmart and get your vitamin D3 gummy bears. For crying out loud, they're as cheap as they come. A big bottle of it will last you months. 1 or 2 gummy bears a day is fine. Okay? Vitamin C. Holy crap. I don't care if you take Citracal or the over-the-counter stuff that's in a Walmart. 500 milligrams a day, twice a day, 1 gram a day is plenty. Okay? Melatonin, also over the counter. Begin with 0.3 milligrams and increase as tolerated to 2 milligrams at night. Let's see, zinc, 30 to 50 milligrams per day. Vitamin B complex, ivermectin for post-exposure prophylaxis, ivermectin for pre-exposure prophylaxis, and for prophylaxis in high-risk individuals over 60 years of age, comorbidities, morbid obesity, long-term care facilities, blah, blah, blah. Okay? I don't take ivermectin. I'm taking fenbendazole. 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 It's basically the same stuff. It's not ivermectin, but it is a dewormer, and it does work, and you can buy it over the counter. You can buy it on Amazon. It's about $80 for enough to last you for 3 months. So it's easy enough. Take it 3 or 4 days a week, lay off it for 3 or 4 days, and you'll not get it because the virus will not be able to multiply in your system. So there's a dosing table. I'm going to include that. The link is in here. That's all you need to know. Okay? That's it. The most important drug interactions occur with cyclosporin, tacrolimus, antiretroviral drugs, and certain antifungal drugs. So if you're taking Lamisil, it's an antifungal drug you can take. It's a little hard on your liver, but it will clear up your toenails or fingernails if they turn yellow from fungus infection underneath your cuticles. A brand new nail will grow out and it'll be fine, and your liver will recover. Even if you have a marginal liver, it's pretty safe to take, but it is a little hard on your liver. But so if you're taking Lamisil, don't take ivermectin until that regimen is done. Simple as that. All right, we got about 2 minutes to break, and then I want to talk a little bit about more of what's being staged up by this Marxist administration trying to make this transition to take over our government. Doc Skinner, good to see you out there. That's right. Let them charge $1,000 per dose. They will prove it overnight. Yeah, that's pretty much true. Doc says amen. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, ivermectin is about, like I said, about $6 to $7 a dose. And these are for 150 pounds a person or up, and they're chewable. They're dog dewormers, so how bad can they be, right? Anyway, they're perfectly safe. It's the same stuff, the same exact stuff. You don't have to worry about a doctor. If your doctor will prescribe you ivermectin, go for it. Go for it. But if he won't prescribe it to you as a prophylactic, saying, well, you're not sick, why should I prescribe you a drug? Then fine. Go get the ivermectin in Iverheart and take it that way. And you should buy a book. It's called, it's by Ragnar Svensson, I think. It's a survival book, and it teaches you all of the veterinary drugs that are perfectly useful for humans. Everything from procaine, penicillin, and on up. Okay, we're gonna, as soon as the music starts, yep, there we go. We'll take the studio out, and we will get ready for our final hour. All right, let's talk a little bit about the land grab that is coming up. See, how often do you take Iverheart? Once a week. Once a week. If you're going to take it prophylactically, like you're not sick, you have no symptoms, you could take it once a month. Okay? Dogs take it once a month to keep the worms out. All you need is the drug in your system. It accumulates and stores in the liver, so you're going to be protected for a while. And it's not that much. You're taking HCQ, 1 tablet every 2 weeks. Yeah, Sun Rabbit, there you go. She's taking HCQ, 1 tablet every 2 weeks. He or she, I don't know if Sun Rabbit's a man or a woman. That's not really necessary to know here. They're on DLive. By the way, don't forget, next half hour, we're going to give away lemons on DLive. So if you're, flirting with, gee, should I go to DLive.tv/Brooks Agnew and follow him? Yes, you should, because I'm going to give away cryptocurrency in the last half hour, and you could be a recipient of that if you go and log in. What chlorine dioxide, aka MMS, I've taken it a few times. I don't know anything about it. And garlic, yes. Mega doses of C. You don't have to do mega doses, but I will say if you get this flu or get this disease, if you take like 5 grams a day, that's like 5,000 milligrams, 5 grams a day, this disease responds to it. When I got it in January, I thought, oh, I'm going down for the count on this one. I could feel it. It just jumped into your lungs with both muddy boots. But 3 days later, I was done. It was the smoothest flu I ever got. Yeah, believe me, it does work. Of course, I have an amazing immune system, better than most people, better than probably 95% of the people. But still, it was I could feel it. It was going to be bad. Let's see. Mona says, also, there's a book called Back to Eden, has superb old-time remedies using basics like food, herbs, etc. Now, I will look that up next week. I'll put it out. It's Survivalist Medicine or something like that. It's a little green book. I bought it years ago. I have it in my library. Just look it up every now and then, because you can go down to the hardware store, to the Tractor Supply store, and you can buy the same lot number of pills, antibiotics, and whatnot to treat yourself or your family that your doctor is going to give you. I don't highly recommend doing that all the time. We're talking about survivalist medicine now, not trying to doctor yourself, but something as simple as pink eye powder. Pink eye powder is a topical antibiotic, a little bit like Neosporin, only a lot more powerful. And if you get a foot laceration and you can't get medical care, you're out on the farm or you're a survivalist yourself, you can sprinkle a little pink eye powder on there, and that cut will not get infected. See? There's just all kinds of stuff that you can use for humans that are normally used for mammals. Don't stay away from the fish tank cleaner or whatever that stuff was. But if I tell you you can do it, you can do it. Okay? If I tell you you can do it, you can do it. No sense waiting on, all right, a little bit of music and we'll be through here. We'll get into our final hour. Don't forget the phone number is live, and I am watching the call boards. I'm kind of blinking back and forth between there and the multi-stream chat room so that I can see what people are saying and what they're thinking, how they're reacting. You could do tonic water, but it's going to be a lot of doses. And it's a good prophylactic, but I wouldn't try to treat the disease with the tonic water, okay? The quinine in that is not the same as HCQ. HCQ is hydrochloroquine, and it's a little bit different. So HCQ is used to treat malaria and lupus. Totally safe. It's been around for over 6 decades. It's super cheap. And I honestly don't know any doctors that would refuse to prescribe it to you, even as a prophylactic. But if they will, then you can revert and take the ivermectin in Iverheart. Yeah, well, see, Vera Albert has a good point. I dash across the border into Mexico and get any drugs I need dirt cheap and no prescription needed. It's true. And that's a little bit why President Trump put America back on most favored nation status, which the pharmaceutical companies hate. They want us to pay the bill while the rest of the world gets the benefits from it. The other thing is putting the doctor in between the drug and you. Now, for those of us that have, a chronic weakness, like you might have asthma or you have, let's say, diabetes, you have something you have, and you've been taking the same drug for decades, okay? It works for you. You use it all the time. You don't have to change it very often. You could see a doctor every 5 years if you want to. You know what he's going to prescribe you. Or you could take the prescription and take it across the border and get your stuff. Now, for instance, a little vial of insulin, injectable insulin. A bottle is about anywhere from $85 to $150, okay? And some people go through 2 of them a month. Well, that's a pretty good hit. That's a car payment, okay? $300, $400 a month for the juice and more for the rigs. When President Trump put us on most favored nation status, insulin went down to about $9 a bottle, $9 to $15 a bottle. Well, that's manageable. I mean, that's cheaper than insurance payment, right? I take calvelderol and amlodipine. This is a calcium channel blocker cocktail for hypertension. It keeps my hypertension right where it's supposed to be, and I don't have to take a big dose. It's just enough to calm my system down because I have a nuclear reactor inside my body, and I run a little higher pressure than most people. So we want to keep it under check so we don't blow a gasket in this biological transducer. I get the drugs for about $27 every 3 months. Why would I need insurance to get that drug? I've been taking the same drug for 10 years. It works fine on me. I have my blood pressure checked from time to time, and it's fine. So and when I was in Egypt, I was with I'm trying to remember. West was his last name. He was a amateur archaeologist like we were. And we were in Egypt, and he arrived, and he forgot his albuterol, which the little sprayer that you use, inhaler for asthma. And we were in Cairo. And so we walked around the block, found the local pharmacy. He bought his albuterol, and we went back to the hotel. Just like that. No prescription needed. He knew exactly what he needed. He'd been using it his entire life, and he was fine. I could see that. I can see you doing that. So I'm totally supportive of that, Vera. Yeah. Metformin, Mexico, $9 per 1,000. It's a diabetes medicine. How about that? There you go. There you go. Iverheart is not on Amazon. Yes, it is. It's you're spelling it right, Iverhart, and it's put out by a company called Virbac, Virbac, and you can buy it on there. It is on there. I checked today. It's there. You have to do a little bit of research. Don't get the paste or the dip or any of that. Get the chewables, okay? All right, let's talk a little bit. As if Biden's list of cabinet members is not cartoonish enough, you ain't seen nothing yet. Deb Haaland. She's a first-term congresswoman. She was selected over the obviously more qualified Senator Tom Udall, who has served 5 terms in the House, 2 terms in the Senate. Udall's been a point person for the Democrat Party on native and environmental issues for decades, going back to the time in the House when he served as the co-vice chair of the House Native American Caucus and the co-chair of the International Conservative Caucus. In contrast, Haaland hasn't even finished her first freshman term in Congress. She's kind of like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And her only other applicable experience includes serving as the chair of the Democrat Party of New Mexico for 2 years, which means 1 election. And and serving as the tribal administrator for the San Felipe Pueblo for 2 years. In short, she is nothing more than a low-performance partisan hack. Some of Biden's advisors counseled him against selecting Haaland because they were concerned her lack of experience could cause managerial problems. You know how it is, right? Not knowing how to use the programs, how to write a formal letter, how to conduct a proper meeting, those kinds of skills that you might need to be the chair of an important committee like this. Haaland's nomination was also warned against because it leaves Democrats with a razor-thin majority in the House. By the time the mess of an election is counted up, Democrats are losing 13 seats. Pelosi's gavel is more than a few pounds lighter than it was last year. And yet, good old Deb Haaland still won the position after Native and environmentalist groups put pressure on Biden to select an Indian for, and this is a big one, Interior Secretary. Oh, yeah. One petition saying the secretary should be Native American because that group culturally is best suited to protect our natural resources in a sustainable and honorable manner. Sorry, I threw up a little bit in my mouth. Now it's racist if we don't have the right genetics to allocate the use of trees and rocks. Well, true to appearance over substance form, Haaland not only fills the Native American spot on Biden's identity politics Uno card in his cabinet. There is one small problem, though. Good old Deb has an agenda of her own. Haaland is a hardcore environmentalist radical whose primary objective is stopping climate change by the most extreme measures. She is a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, co-led legislation to end the use of fossil fuels by 2050, and unapologetically wants to ban fracking. When protests broke out over the Dakota Access Pipeline, she even visited the protesters' blockade and even cooked them a native meal of green chili and tortillas. But then there's a little issue we happen to know about. Haaland has plans for a radical land grab scheme seeking to steal back huge portions of the United States from private companies and citizens to give to the Native Americans that lost it 140 years ago. Only now it's worth about 1 billion times more money. Haaland introduced a bill in the House called the 30 by 30 Resolution to Save Nature, which calls for the United States to conserve 30% of its land and 30% of its oceans by 2030. She didn't think of it. It's part of the Globalist Agenda 2030 to seize government control of 30% of planet Earth and kick humans off of it. All except them, of course. Consider it their own private nature preserve. The radical goal now is part of Biden's plan for a clean energy revolution and environmental justice. The goal was also added to the 2020 Democratic platform, which, according to Haaland, was at her suggestion. It wasn't. Currently, 12% of U.S. lands are conserved, meaning they are controlled by the government, and there is limited and strictly managed mining and oil production on those lands. In order for Haaland's scheme to work, the government would have to take back an additional 400 million acres of land, which is greater than the land size of the 23 smallest states. Viewed another way, Haaland wants to conserve additional land larger than the size of Texas, California, Montana, Florida, and Massachusetts combined. That's 36 million acres larger than the state of Alaska. No one gets to live there except the Indians. Well, that was her plan, until the globalists come to scrape all the chips off her table. Barack Obama took over more than 550 million acres of land and water during his presidency, the most of any president, including the addition of 261.3 million acres to the Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument. He borrowed $10 trillion on it from the Chinese, and we still have no freaking clue where any of that money went. The Antiquities Act gives the president the power to set aside public land for conservation as national monuments without congressional approval. So even if Republicans maintain their majority in the Senate, Biden could still grab huge areas of land. And with Haaland's minority clout, it will be all that much easier for the globalists to accomplish their plan. Obama controversially took hold of 1.35 million acres of land. He created Bears Ears National Monument in December of 2016. You remember that? Right before he was out. Conservatives felt the federal government had trampled on residents' rights in taking the land. And the Trump administration later shrunk the monument by 85% in 2017. The people, they celebrated Trump's management of the land. Way better than the BLM. The BLM is horrible at land management. They let the scrub grow up. They let fires start. They let streams go dry. They ruin the land. As Interior Secretary, do you realize Haaland would urge Biden to seize huge parcels of land and place them under her direct control? In order to meet her goal, she'll have to take over hundreds of millions of acres more than Obama took over. And Haaland is predicted to end all new permits on drilling on public lands and shut down fracking on public lands. But she'll face a legal battle on regulating fracking, as a federal judge ruled during the Obama administration that the Interior Department, they don't have the authority to regulate fracking, and they struck down the department's fracking regulations. But if you think that's going to stop her and her army of protesters, you're just fooling yourself. The Biden administration also plans to make all public lands carbon neutral by 2030. Currently, oil and gas produced on federal lands accounts for 1/5 to 1/4 of U.S. carbon emissions. And although the carbon is the most common element on Earth, it has become the poster child for the globalists' enemy number one. So you can expect that Halen's Interior Department is going to aim to dismantle energy production. When she speaks of sacred sites, the New Republic's Nick Martin wrote, she is not speaking about something historical like a burial ground or a new Stonehenge. It's not abstract or foreign or even academic. It is something she can connect to and defend from a deep place of understanding. You must agree that some white, male, privileged appointee would have lacked the same spiritual connection to nature. No, sorry, I don't agree. Halen plans to give some of this land to Native American tribes. And when Halen does so, progressives are going to celebrate the $1 trillion land grab as a Native woman taking back land from the thieving Americans who wrongly took it in the first place. Are you happy with the transition so far? Well, you get where all this goes, right? You see it. You see it along with everyone else. So, how's the war going? Well, it turns out President Trump hit the Chinese in the purse. Ouch. President Donald Trump, a couple days ago, signed legislation that would kick Chinese companies off the U.S. stock exchanges unless they adhere to American auditing standards. That's rough. The Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act bars securities of foreign companies from being listed on any U.S. exchange if they have failed to comply with the U.S. Public Accounting Oversight Board's audits for 3 years in a row. Now, I personally know foreign companies who have raised over $500 million on U.S. markets. Were they compliant? Yes, they were. Did they have clean books? Yes, they did. Were they doing honorable business, and did they use the money for the right thing? Yes, they did. Can it be done? Of course it can. While it applies to companies from any country, the legislation's sponsors intended to target Chinese companies listed in the United States. Like, let's see, I can think of one. How about Alibaba? Competes with eBay only on an industrial scale. How about the tech firm Pinduoduo Inc. and oil giant PetroChina? The legislation, like many others, taking a harder line on Chinese businesses, had passed Congress by large margins earlier this year. Lawmakers, both Democrats and Trump's fellow Republicans, echo the president's hard line against Beijing, which became fiercer this year as Trump blamed China for the coronavirus ravaging the United States. They're not going to be able to take our money off our markets any longer. So, that being said, there's some interesting going on in the war with respect to special prosecutors. You know Sidney Powell, don't you? Well, let me ask you this question. What if President Trump appoints Sidney Powell as a special counsel to investigate voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election? You think that would be a good idea? Oh, I think it would be wonderful. Published reports indicate the commander-in-chief floated Powell's name to probe the allegations during a Friday meeting at the White House. How do you think that went? Really? I think it went pretty well. I think it probably upset some people, but, you know, these White House meetings aren't really bipartisan. No, Sun Rabbit, he didn't already do that, but it's coming. It's coming. Oh, okay, you found it. You found it. Good. The executive order of foreign election interference, that's EO 13848. That's a little bit different. That blocks assets, which basically allows the U.S. Treasury Department to confiscate them. It blocks assets of any foreign power that interferes with our election. So 13848 is a very powerful EO, but what we're talking about here is not prosecuting China. Or we're not talking about taking foreign assets like George Soros or the CCP or anything like that. We're talking about domestic lawbreakers. We're talking about people in states that committed fraud. And, you know, when you have a special counsel, they have the power to subpoena, they have the power to arrest, and they have the power to put people in jail. Yes, I think she will attack the cheaters. Videos from the Underground says in YouTube chat room. I agree with that. Trump is discussing getting Powell security clearance, but it is unclear whether Trump intends to try to move forward with the effort to actually install Sidney Powell. Usually, it's actually not the president that does this, right? It's the attorney general. But the DOJ does work for the president, so he can really do it if he wants to. Now, the American patriots like Powell's hardcore nationalism, right? I like it. You like it, I'm sure. Rudy Giuliani wants to have the U.S. Department of Homeland Security seize and examine voting machines the president has said many times have been tampered with. I believe they have too. What do they have to hide? The DHS made clear it has no authority to do so, but that does not rule out the military. Under the state of emergency in EO 13848, the military does have authority to defend American infrastructure against foreign attack. Seizing and forensically examining the machines would prove out the hypothesis that the CCP did indeed have access to the vote totals during the election. It would also prove that the CCP switched votes. They stuffed ballot boxes and even printed counterfeit ballots into the system. The order was signed in September of 2018 on the 12th. And it says not later than 45 days after the conclusion of the United States election, the Director of National Intelligence, that would be Ratcliffe, in consultation with the heads of any other appropriate executive departments and agencies, shall conduct an assessment of any information indicating that a foreign government or any person acting as an agent or on behalf of a foreign government has acted with the intent of or purpose of interfering in that election. We believe that did in fact take place. Sidney Powell said the evidence of foreign intervention is more than sufficient to trigger the order, providing the president all kinds of power to do everything, from seize assets to freeze things, demand the impoundment of voting machines, etc. Under the emergency powers, you could even appoint a special prosecutor to look into this, which is exactly what needs to happen. Every machine, every voting machine in the country should be impounded right now, she said. There's frankly more than enough criminal probable cause to justify that for anybody who's willing to address the law and the facts purely on the basis of truth and not politics or corporate greed or global wealth. So 3 days ago, Sidney Powell said her emergency petitions for Georgia and Michigan election fraud cases are on the U.S. Supreme Court docket. We don't know what that means. They could just as easily say we're not interested. Powell said the Supreme Court clerk refused to give a reason, but it appears that the High Court is slow-walking the cases. They're not requiring a response from the states until January 14th. That's 6 days before Inauguration Day. Obviously not acceptable. She's saying what's going on, unprecedented lack of professionalism. I agree. But also have been a hit on our ridiculous voting machines during the election, which is now obvious. Some, including former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, have suggested the president impose martial law and deploy the military for a second presidential vote. I don't think we need to go that far. I think limited martial law is probably a reaction if we have violence break out. We're going to go to Washington, D.C. on the 6th, and so are 5 million of my friends. But I started a hashtag. I call it the 50-50-50 plan. This is how it goes. 50 states, 50 capitals, 50 million people. 1 million people at each state capital. I know Alaska, Hawaii, you're probably not going to be able to do that. But we need a sea of patriots. A sea of red hat, flag waving patriots outside of every single Capitol building on the 6th. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C., and it's going to be wild. And that's a quote from the president. It could be a huge party because we don't really know what is going to be said. I have a feeling maybe Mo Brooks will be successful. The double sets of electors that are being sent by the states may turn out okay. In other words, you got 2 envelopes. I explained this on Wednesday. One envelope has the Democrat electors. The other envelope has the Republican electors. The Democrat ones are given by the governor and the Secretary of State, certified. The Republican ones are from the state legislature and also certified by the state legislature. Now it's up to Vice President Pence to decide whether he wants to accept them or not. If he chooses not to accept the Democrat electors from 6 states who have exhibited highly irregular, highly unstable, and highly untrustworthy election results, then the debate begins. And once the debate is over, if they choose, and we're talking about 1 senator and 1 congressman being required to start the debate, once that debate is over, and they throw out those electors for obvious reasons that we've already discussed tonight, then the second slate of electors comes into play. If that's the case, and I described this on Easter Sunday, I didn't know which 6 states it would be, but I figured it would be 5 or 6 states. I estimated then it would be about 70 to 75 electors. It is actually 73 electors that are involved here. Those 73 electors go for Trump, then we are indeed going to have a celebration on January 6th. And it is going to be the re-election by the Electoral College and the popular vote of Donald J. Trump as President of the United States. All of this that we've been talking about, Haaland and Pelosi and all of these radical confiscatory taxes and masks and lockdowns, all that goes away. All that goes away. And we march on toward normalcy, if that is even a word. Okay, hang on a second. We'll bring the studio back in. Final segment. So glad to have you all here. Final segment. As promised, if you are on D Live right now, I'll give you 2 minutes if you want to switch over there, you can. If you're on DLive right now, I am going to give away some lemons. Lemons, as you know, if you're part of dlive.tv/Brooks Agnew. Lemons is the same as money. This is a blockchain platform. And normally it's set aside for gamers. But I kind of foresaw that there was going to be a big shakeup in the YouTube world. And I moved over to DLive several months ago. I struggled with it because it's primarily a gamer's platform. I came in as a podcaster trying to establish a presence, so it's not easy to do. Not easy to do because you have to promote yourself outside of DLive for people to go into DLive, and it takes time. And sure enough, the purge did come on YouTube, and 20 of my colleagues, some of them with huge numbers of subscribers, way, way more than me, out. They got dumped. Their money was taken from them. Their accounts were taken from them. And they were kicked out into the streets. Well, they scrambled. I mean, some of them quit. Some of them decided to take their own lives. And we managed to support them enough to keep them from doing that and encourage them, come over to DLive, come over to Twitch, establish yourself, and bring your listeners with you. And they've managed to do that. And so now we're starting to develop this DLive platform. And it is having its growing pains. It is. But I think the guys at DLive are doing a great job. They have a good Discord board. They allow you to solve problems. And it is going forward. And so we podcasters are now having a good presence on dlive.tv. And my hat's off to all of my colleagues that are in here, Red Pill 78 and, others, Murder, Above Ground. All these guys are working really well. I follow most of them. But let's go ahead and we're going to give away some lemons to those people who are in. Let me see here. I'm feeling really generous today. I'm going to raise this to 500. 500 lemons, okay? So let's see here. I'm going to submit this and then, hold on a second. We're going to distribute. So here we go. What DLive does is now takes 30 seconds and it randomly goes through all the people that are listening right now live on dlive.tv. And it is going to select them to distribute 500 lemons. I'm putting out, this is a significant amount of blockchain cryptocurrency. Most people put out like 50 or 150, but I'm feeling really Christmassy because this is the last episode before Christmas. And so here we go. Sun Rabbit is the great winner tonight. They get 177.6 lemons. Let's see. Michael, 1973, 102.3. What is that? SRB, 1978, 74.2. Moverling 5, 59.2. And Claytu Baradu. I like that. 49.7. This is generous, and I'm happy to do it. So now you are all richer for having listened to America Free Radio on dlive.tv. So if you have your bank account linked to your lemon account or to your cryptocurrency account, eventually you could take real dollars out of this. Yeah, take it home with you and go do something with it. If not, then you can, leave it in here and let it grow and trade it around until it gets larger. Just to let you know, it's real cryptocurrency, it's real money, and Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you so much for listening to X Squared Radio. Now, I want to talk a little bit about The Expanse. I know. I binged I binged all 3 opening episodes of season 5 this weekend. Wow, the graphics and the effects, they're off the charts. It doesn't feel like a small screen series, okay? It feels like a big screen movie with a big budget for all the computer graphics. The producers are sparing no expense for the expanse. Don't start the series in the middle, okay? You got to start at the beginning and get ready to have your science genes activated. It's all real. Well, okay, it's all possible. There's no light speed or warp drive or anything like that. All the space travel is based on fusion rocketry and real physics, except for the juice. I don't think people doing 10 Gs, an acceleration, have to shoot up with milk thistle or whatever that stuff is. I think the juice may be just, for production value. But the sociology of the series is actually quite excellent. Mankind carries his flawed nature into space. And the segregation that we have here on Earth is exchanged for the segregation by planet. If you're a belter, you talk weird, and you have brittle bones, the wealth of space is played across the solar system up to and almost including Jupiter. Then the alien technology shows up. Less the aliens, of course. And it takes the human race to far-off solar systems through a ring of artificial worm gates. The frontier solves nothing as the all-powerful UN tries to control the frontier, just like they do here and now. So you should watch it. It's fun. I enjoy it, and I'm recommending it. That's my review of The Expanse. And yes, Friday, well, maybe not Friday, but the following few days after Friday, I'm going to watch the weekly episode of The Expanse. There'll now come one per Friday until season 5 is done. So also in the news is a new star of Bethlehem. On December 21st, 2020, Jupiter and Saturn will cross paths in the night sky for a brief moment. They will appear to shine together as one body. While planetary conjunctions like this are not everyday events, they're also not particularly rare. This year's conjunction is different for 2 reasons. The first is the degree to which the 2 planets will be aligned. Experts predict they'll appear closer during this conjunction than they have in nearly 800 years, so they're going to appear brighter. But the second factor, and this is the one that has thrust this event into the spotlight, is that it will occur exactly on the winter solstice and just before the Christmas holiday. The timing has led to a speculation whether this could be the same astronomical event that the Bible reports led the wise men to Joseph, Mary, and the newly born Jesus, Star of Bethlehem. It's not likely because, as you recall, the wise men did not arrive in Bethlehem until Jesus was almost 2 years old. As a scholar of early Christian literature, writing a book on the 3 wise men, people have argued that the upcoming planetary conjunction is likely not the fabled Star of Bethlehem. The biblical story of the star is intended to convey theological rather than historical or astronomical truths, but if it did happen, it would have to have lasted a lot longer than this conjunction will last. Now, I have something else to add to this because we have a little bit of time left. We've got about 16 minutes left, and I want to share this with you. Because I wrote this in the book, Remembering the Future, the Physics of the Soul and Time Travel. 2 years from now, there will be a new star appearing in the night sky. And it ain't going to be a planet. It will be a cosmic gem that should glitter in the northern wing of the constellation Cygnus, the Swan, and it's going to last for a good portion of the year. I predicted it in the book because it actually occurred 1,800 years ago. 1,800 years ago, there was a star that exploded. It took out the world where I lived. I arrived here in the middle of the last century. But the light from that explosion is going to arrive here in the year 2022. Now, although I describe the star in detail in my book, Remembering the Future, astronomers are now predicting that the light from that event will arrive at Earth more than 10,000 times brighter than it is right now. The explosion will be visible from Earth with the naked eye, and it should be about as bright as Polaris, the North Star. The eruption will signal the moment the two stars locked in a cosmic dance have merged, exploded into a red nova that will briefly give Cygnus an extrastellar spangle. One was blue and small, and the other was red. I used to watch them circle one another in the daytime sky. Oh yes, they were that bright. You should teach that to your kids now, and let them anticipate in the stellar tapestry overhead where a new pinprick of light will occur. We get a predicted explosion date of 2022. That's Calvin College astronomer Larry Molnar, who presented the prediction Friday during a meeting of the American Astronomical Society in Grapevine, Texas. It is unknown whether he was using my book as a reference. It's going to be a very dramatic change in the sky, as anyone can see it. You won't need a telescope to tell me whether I was right or wrong. Being able to count down to such a stellar wreck is unique in astronomy, which normally involves waiting around for stars to explode and hoping that telescopes are pointed in the right direction at the right time. But it's nice to know about it in advance, isn't it? Somebody who was there 1,800 years ago. This is the first ever prediction of an explosion. We don't know yet whether it's right or wrong, but it's the first time we can actually make such a prediction, Molnar says. About 1,800 light years away, the stars jointly known as KIC 9832-227. They are an eclipsing binary pair, which means as they revolve around one another, one briefly blots out the other from the perspective of a viewer on Earth. A small planet called Vindara orbited that star. It's gone now, along with all the souls who lived on it. Till recently, astronomers didn't even know that the twinkling point of light was more than one star. 2013, Apache Point Observatory astronomer Karen Kinamuchi noticed that the blips in brightness could mean that there were two stars, not just one. Based on the timing and depth of those periodic eclipses, astronomers determined that one of the binary stars is about 40% larger than the sun, while the other is just 1/3 the sun's size. But there's more. For at least 15 years, the KIC 9832-227 has been in the crosshairs of telescopes, including NASA's planet-hunting Kepler telescope, which stared at the system for nearly 4 years. Now, scientists know the stars are so close to one another that they probably share a common gassy shell, meaning that as the system whirls, it looks like an astro peanut. two stars orbit each other every 11 hours, and they both spin in synchronism with their orbit, so the stars always face the same side toward each other. But as astronomers processed more than a decade of observations, they realized that something very odd was happening. The stars were eclipsing one another more frequently, almost as if they were spiraling in toward one another. Using more than 32,000 images of the system made with the Calvin College telescope, Molnar and his colleagues were able to calculate that the eclipse rate was steadily increasing. These changes indicate something interesting is happening to the stars beyond the basic force of gravity. The observations echoed what astronomer Romuald Thailenda had seen with the system V1309 just before it unexpectedly went nova in 2008. Yet before an inevitable collision at KIC 9832-227 could be concluded, the team needed to rule out a rogue third star and solidify the anticipated change in the eclipse rate. Their latest calculations suggest that if the speed at which the stars are merging continues to follow the same trend, the two will become one in the year 2022. When the stars collide, they'll produce what's called a red nova, an eruption somewhere between the brightness of a cataclysmic supernova and a more run-of-the-mill classic nova. Regardless, the stellar fireworks are going to be bright enough to see from Earth with the unaided eye. You should see it from the terrace on Findara. Explosions of this size occur about once a decade in our galaxy. This case is unusual in how close the star is, and hence how bright we will see it shine. This case is also unique in that it is the first time anyone has predicted an explosion in advance. No, it's not a proto-quasar. Quasars are the largest structures in the universe. This is much smaller than that. This is less than a quarter the size of our sun. All right, let's see. We've got a call out there. Got about 8 minutes left out there in North Carolina. Let's see. North Carolina, what's on your mind tonight?
There's a dome over the earth, right? I'm listening to your space.
I'm not aware of a dome.
Your little space rant. You haven't heard about it? It's all over the internet.
We don't entertain hollow Earth calls here or flat Earth calls here, so I had to mute him. He can sit out there and make his case to himself. Sorry about that, Earth Explorers. Don't normally, I don't screen the calls, but I kind of know where it was going. So don't feel like having a sixth grade argument since we just talked about something seriously amazing. Novas, by the way, don't necessarily destroy the star. It can be considered by some to be the kind of Control-Alt-Delete of a star. That is to say, a reboot of the star. Yes, it's a cataclysmic event. It probably wipes out most or all of the planets in that solar system. But it creates new matter, generates energy and new matter that flows out into that solar system and further out into the galaxy. And we have some evidence that it's possible our sun has undergone this as well. One of the pieces of evidence that we have is our own moon. We have an event which in the Arc of Millions of Years series we call the Black Axiom. The Black Axiom is what we once believed was as the solar system passes through space, it passes through areas that have like dark dust in them. So the bodies that are spinning very quickly, they get kind of uniformly coated. And the bodies that don't spin at all, they get half coated. Sort of like entering a cloud of black spray paint, with a white car. The leading edge is going to get this paint on it, and the back edge is not going to get so much paint on it. So the point is that slow rotating bodies got half this coating, and fast rotating bodies got a uniform coating. Well, a slow rotating body would be our moon. Our moon rotates once every 28 days on its axis. And it rotates around the Earth, orbits around the Earth once every 28 days. So the same side of the moon always faces us. The side that faces us is pretty black. The side that faces away from us, that we don't see from Earth, is 6 times brighter. It is almost white in appearance. So we kind of know when this happened because we can look at the meteor strikes on the face of the moon, and we can see the white dust that is scattered out on the surface of the moon after the black axiom, after this black coating. So we can expect that this probably happened somewhere between 25,000 and maybe 11,000 years ago. Something like that. So we for a long time thought it was this black axiom that the solar system is going through the precession of the equinoxes. It's moving through space. It's not just sitting here. It goes up and down through the galactic plane. And however, we don't have a lot of evidence of repeated exposures, even when we're talking about the entire precession of the equinoxes. We also realize that this month we come to the end of the age. The end of the age began in 2012, in December of 2012. The end of the age takes about anywhere from 40 to 75 years to complete. So officially, we are entering the age of Aquarius, okay? We're entering the precession of Aquarius, one of the signs in the zodiac. And we have a lot of prophecies that go with this. For instance, Jesus told us, he told his apostles that he would return at the end of the age. Well, we're there. I mean, Jesus' return could happen 48 years from now, or 75 years from now, or 75 minutes from now. Although I don't think it's going to happen right then. The rest of the signs are not there yet. And I'm not sure that it's the right time, because if he came now, they would just kill him so fast. It would be crazy. It would just be war. It would just be total pandemonium. We're not ready. But it makes us alive at a very special time. We are very powerful beings, and we should not be looking down at the ground wearing a mask. There's a reason why the powers on the earth want everyone on the planet in solitary confinement with a mask over their mouth, with their souls broken down, because they know the time we're at in space. They know who we are, and they know there are 8 billion of us here, more probably than have ever been alive on this planet at one time, which means we have a very powerful, incredible consciousness signature that exists on this planet. It can probably be seen from anywhere in the universe. In fact, I would say we are the greatest show in the universe right now. I'm just asking you, act like it. Love one another. Care for one another. Realize that at least at this time of year, give to one another. Don't fight with one another over anything. Take the mask off and love one another. cure is already in our hands. All you have to do is get it for yourself. Easy to do. Go out and look for the good in others and help it to grow a little every day. And before long, you will have saved the planet. Remember this. Where we go one, we go all. So let us go together. Let us go and do. Let us find one another, care for one another, and be there for one another.